This is Brian Halinka, and you're listening to Technically PvP.
You're listening to Technically PvP, a podcast about player versus player in the world of Warcraft.
For the glory of Stormwind. Victory or death!
It's December the 11th, 2018, and you are listening to Technically PvP, a podcast where we analyze the various aspects of player versus player in the game World of Warcraft. Hey, I'm Jarisar, a PvP apprentice, and on behalf of Andolin and Winstead, welcome to the show. And also, I am pleased to welcome Bolt to the show. Hey, dude.
Hey there, how we doing?
I'm awesome. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, doing very, very well.
Excellent. You know, it's such a pleasure that you volunteered to come and get barraged by questions by us. But I'm sure a bunch of our listeners are like, Bolt, why does that name sound familiar? So can you maybe give yourself a little talk up, let everybody know who you are, what you do, and what you do in World of Warcraft? How about that?
Yeah, for sure. So if you guys haven't kind of caught on yet, I am Bolt. I currently raid in World of Warcraft, and I also PvP from time to time. I currently raid with the guild Vindicatum. We raid anywhere from US 30 to US 50, and then I also play with a Destro Warlock every season because I am slightly masochistic. Outside of World of Warcraft, I study CS and economics.
Wow,
yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, dual majoring is not a good plan of attack.
No,
the
you
best.
definitely do have a bit of a masochistic side there.
Yeah,
have a bit.
It's more than a bit, but yeah, that's it.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Well, hey, welcome to the show, and I'm looking forward to hearing your analytical brain helping us take apart. We'll talk about later during the subject of analysis. But before we get there, I'd really like to know what everybody's been up to these last couple weeks. So I guess, Andolin, how about you first, man?
Yeah, so you know what? There's a real sad reality that happens when you get so involved in something that's around WoW. So you end up. You ever watch the South Park episode of World of Warcraft?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one where when to live. Yeah, exactly. So, you know how they get so focused on killing that one dude that they're like, oh, we killed him. Now they're like, what do we do now? They're like, now we can play the game. So it's like that's how it is. When you become a content creator and you start to do all that stuff, you just don't get to play the game. So when it's time to play the game, you're like, how do I play the game?
I can kind of relate. Relate.
So yeah,
this last little bit that I've been going through.
The struggle is real.
Yeah, but it's been fun. We've been having a lot of great success with our new RPG tournaments that have actually spawned a huge amount of interest in the RPG community. And we're on the heels of the Gosu Cup on Saturday. Which is going to be exciting. We'll have some Dilly, Supatis, some of your fan favorites commentating that, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice. And
Sweet.
I guess now we don't have to talk about the upcoming PvP events, so that's okay.
Not sorry.
Hey,
right.
It's something that we should probably definitely highlight for people.
Yeah, right.
We will.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. And that's, I can only appreciate, as also all the effort that we put into this show, what it's like to trying to find that balance between wanting to play the game and still being able to prepare yourself for content creation and all the work that goes behind that. So, and I know you put way more effort into what you do than I think what we do here, but that's an aside.
Subjective.
Yeah, I guess. Bolt though, man, what have you been up to these last couple of weeks?
Last couple of weeks, I mean, it's been finals week this week, so that was a whole lot of fun. And I recently decided to pick up playing a very difficult class, Fire Mage in World of Warcraft. Very difficult class to play, let me tell you.
You are masochistic.
Yep. I decided to, greater pyro my way to some interesting ratings.
I wasn't sure if you're being facetious or not, though, because I thought like Fire Mage only has like 3 buttons.
Oh, it is the most sarcastic I could ever be.
The most.
I started playing it because I PvE on it, right? So I raid on it, so I have a bunch of gear on it. So yeah, I should play this. I should try to get a glad on this thing since it's like, so simple in terms of what other people say.
Well,
so I got a couple friends that Ret Fire comp, and when you Wake of Ashes people for 60k at the same time that a combustion meteor hits, things tend to die.
Oh wow,
yeah, that's what I've been doing. The record I saw was 74k from a Wake of Ashes.
Wow,
it's really very incumbent on the teammates to make the Fire Mage do well, though.
Yeah, definitely.
I will say that because it's very easy to lock down a mage if his teammates aren't supporting him. But yeah, I totally agree that Fire Mage is a little out of hand right now.
Yeah, and it's definitely a transition to... it's definitely like a process getting transitioned to actually being targeted quite often because, you're going to deal with a lot of kicks, and typically you think, like, oh, getting kicked is bad, but you kind of do want to soak a bunch of kicks, and it feels really weird just getting spam interrupted all game. But that's kind of what I've been up to.
Cool. Well, I guess Winstud, since I know you've been chomping at the bit. You've been wanting to talk about this.
Yeah.
What have you been up to this last month? Because gosh darn it, you haven't been here for much.
I know. Okay, so it has finally happened. I now have, at the beginning of this expansion, okay, I had my shaman that I level capped. And then I had the other 4 healers, the priest, I guess it's 5, priest, no, it's 4, priest, pally, monk, druid, all hovering around level 60, 70. Okay. This past weekend, I now officially have all of them to level cap 120.
Wow.
And then I hear about all the level changes that they're making to the game, making it easier to level, and I'm kind of pissed off about that. But all the same, I'm level capped on all the healers available in the game. And so I'm super excited. And now the next step is to get them all to 1400 rating.
So
you're saying that
matches.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited. I'm really excited because I haven't been able to get a main this entire expansion. I haven't picked anything because I've just been leveling everything. And so I'm going to document how each class feels. I'm going to probably capture some of my gameplay on OBS and maybe stream some. Keep an eye on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, you noticed I recently put out a poll on which healer I should do first.
What was the outcome of that?
Paladin. Paladin was the winner.
Really?
Clearly.
Monk was second place. Druid was third. Shaman was fourth. And then Priest, I already cheated on. I already got him up to 1400. Really enjoyed Discipline Priest.
Yeah,
and I'll give a report on that.
Got to enjoy Holy.
We'll see. We'll see. I haven't enjoyed leveling it.
Well,
but leveling and PvP are 2 very different things. So we'll see how it goes when I get into leveling. I will say that I am sick and tired of island expeditions. Really, really sick and tired of island expeditions. And that I finally just gave up on that and just went to leveling in RBGs. Because I was just so, random battlegrounds.
Yeah.
So tired of expeditions that the last 10 levels on the Paladin and the Monk, at about 5 levels on one, 6 levels on the other, I just did all through random battlegrounds, which took a little longer, but was far more enjoyable.
So we talked about that before, about the amount of experience you get from an island expedition, and I think we were talking even on the Dark Moon Herald there when we were talking about it, saying how you actually can get more out of PvP, but you're saying it took a little bit longer than you were expecting in comparison.
Yes.
Now, is that because of win-loss ratios, or is it just the queue time?
Yeah, no, it's a little bit of both. Queue times can be a little wonky if you're not going at a good time. When I would lose a random battleground, you would get 2 bars of experience. When you win, you would get about 4 bars of experience.
Wow.
And then on a random epic, if you lose, you get like 5 bars. And if you win, you get a full third of your XP.
Holy moly.
Yeah, if you win an epic battleground, it's just like a third of your level done.
Wow.
Which, if you're on the Alliance, it's actually really good because technically, because of the way the maps are laid out and Blizzard making mistakes, Alliance is favored to win those statistically. I queued for them constantly.
Yeah. I queue for them every once in a while and we still lose. It's the weirdest thing. Every time I queue into them, we lose. I don't know why.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later, buddy. But,
well, actually, speaking of which, I mean, because we went and did that together. I hopped on, I think it was my Boomkin, and we did a couple battlegrounds together while you were leveling, which was fun. Yeah. I can't remember. Well, I was really bummed because I was trying to have fun, and then I think it was Alterac Valley. I got killed, and then I ended up spawning back at our base by the bunkers there, and then I was just trapped. Like, it was just a wall of horde. I couldn't get past it.
Yeah.
Regardless of what I tried. So
yeah.
All right.
But I will say, as far as leveling goes, it is slower because it's not as consistent. If you're winning consistently, I mean, if you're a class that can really turn a game, which I will say, and I'm probably just playing it wrong, on my Paladin, I was less impactful in random battlegrounds as I was on my Monk. I had a much higher win rate on my Mistweaver Monk than I ever did on my Holy Paladin.
Is that not more because a Holy Pally has more targeted heals and less AoE versus a Monk can do more with more people? So
I almost wonder if it was more along the lines of like utility. I mean, Ring of Peace is insanely powerful in battlegrounds. Insanely powerful in battlegrounds. And so, it's a huge, I mean, just some of the utility. And the utility and mobility of the Monk, I think, just shines in the random battlegrounds a lot more than the Holy Paladin. I mean, healing-wise, I was doing about the same numbers.
Well, as far as toolkit's concerned, HPAL's always like kind of taken the cake with that. And I actually did a 2600 RBG that we won where I actually had 2400 dispels in the battleground.
Oh, wow.
I had never seen that many in my entire life, because it's actually incredible how you can take Pure Heart, right? Which is anytime you heal someone, you dispel one magical or
harmful effect.
Or harmful. Well, it's poisonous or disease effect, right? So it's only those two. So depending on what you're going up against, it benefits you. So we went up against like triple sub rogue and like, I don't know, holy DH or something, and so if you take Pure Heart, every time you heal someone, it does that. So if I also take Aura of Mercy, I'm like passively healing people and I'm passively dispelling. Okay, so if I take Foresight Vision or whatever it's called, it increases my aura 40-yard radius. So I'm healing my whole team like crazy. And I'm constantly mass dispelling the entire team. So, like, you know, depending on what you're going against, like, HPAL is the ultimate toolkit. And it's incredibly underutilized in RBGs. But especially with the 4-healer meta that we're seeing right now, it's a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, no, and I have no doubt that it was just my method of play.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, gosh,
it's very unintuitive.
I'm not proficient on any of these healers yet. You know, and I was really actually getting to feel for the Monk, but the Monk I feel is a lot more simplistic healing, and we'll talk about that more when, you know, I'm able to do my full report on healers in twos and in arenas. So,
okay,
but yeah, that's what I've been up to the past month.
That's awesome, bud. I know you were really looking forward to getting that done so you can get to that next part of your goal, which is, like you said,
Like
actually
Andon
playing
was
them.
saying, yeah, I want to actually play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that they're all level capped, I can actually play the game.
That's awesome. I'm trying to think what else I've been up to. I mean, I did a whole bunch of world quests, playing the auction house again. I really, just the way my life has been lately, by the time I'm done all the stuff I have to do IRL, which has been fairly busy, by the time I'm actually logging in and can actually focus on the game, I really don't have any energy left. So then the idea of going into queues and trying to queue into and find somebody to play PvP with, I just haven't had the want, I guess, right now. So I'm hoping to get that back, especially with the Christmas period coming around the corner. But really, it's been mostly just doing some PvE stuff, maybe grabbing a tune here or there, doing some leveling, nothing major. And again, like we talked about, joining Winstead there that one night, just doing some BGs at the 10 to 9, the 110 to 119 level, just screwing around there. So that was fun. All right, well, let's I guess roll quickly into the WoW PvP events and see what else is going on into the world.
Get in there and fight!
Oops.
Get in there and fight! Stop hiding!
There we go. So we have
think he was
still
hiding.
He did go hiding. The Resurgent King of the Hollow, the Monday night 3v3 tournament is still going on strong. I think, what was it? You guys, how many teams did you guys have last Monday there, Andolin? I think
We had 5. We had 5.
Okay, that's really good. That's really good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so that's still going. So by all means, if you want to do 3v3, go there, go play. If you don't have a teammate, go anyways. They will help you out the best they can. We also have the Gosu Cup, which is coming up this weekend. And I'm really excited to see this because just so much fun. And the fact that Gosu is supporting and backing this tournament, I think is awesome. Right now, I think I see 6 teams have signed up for this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's what we're sitting at currently. And one thing that's unique about this tournament compared to a lot of the tournaments that our organization will put on is that signups are live up until like check-in for the tournament. So up until Saturday, when we start like checking teams in, you can come. So
wow,
you know, it's never been more accessible. It's an off-season time. It's a great chance. I can go ahead and tell you right now, there's no peekaboos signed up right now. Like, you're not gonna get rolled by Sea-Doo. Like, it's a great chance to kind of get in before you forget, or or if it's like, you gotta ask that guy or your teammate or whoever it is, like, yo, do you want to do this? You've got that option, so definitely come play.
Nice.
Well, and before it gets big and before this thing really takes off and it becomes the next wave of World of Warcraft esports, get in at the ground level.
All I'm going to say is you could find yourself being commentated by some people who you may know.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you alluded to this. I didn't see the actual announcement, so I feel like I'm a little behind here, but you alluded to the RBG stuff starting.
Yes.
What is that?
So
What's
the quick
going on there?
TLDR news with 6v6 is because of spectator stuff, we've had a quick lapse where, the quality of being able to view it is not really permissible. So I mean, like, it wouldn't have been able to be spectated in a good way. So what we've kind of swapped over to doing now is we're running 10v10 tournament in a similar type of model to what our King of the Hollow has been, where we'll bring teams in, allow teams to solo queue, put teams together, and we'll hopefully begin by either depending on who the people that come to this regularly, they'll be able to make decisions with us on say like, I really like this, we should do this, and whatever the majority wants to do, we'll do. There's
Okay.
right now we're looking at possibly doing a War Song Wednesdays or something like that, where we just like it's a War Song Gulch tournament, because we actually have some really cool ability to stream War Song Gulch from some tweaking of one particular spectator interface that we
Okay.
have. So
Cool.
we've got different
So
options, but it's a slow progression that was
Mhm.
that's had a lot of obstacles in the way. So
Yes. I know we've been talking about this for a while.
we have
And I saw, actually, looking back at some stuff, I remember seeing there was an announcement through the what's now the Oasis PvP Discord, which was previously the PvP community that you guys had teamed up with.
Yep.
So you guys are going through there as well to help recruit and use that for the RBGs as well, right?
absolutely, yes, and
Yeah.
they go through us as well to to be able to brand and bring what they also bring, awesome great stuff for like coaching on how to lead RPGs if you want to be a better leader, or if you want to be a target caller, or you want to be able to
Yeah.
collaborate on different stuff like that. So it's all really good stuff that Cherry puts out. Definitely worth checking out.
All right. So essentially for the Gosu Cup, obviously that has to go through Battlefy. For the 3v3 King of the Hollow, that's through the Resurgent Discord. And then for the RBGs, that is through the Resurgent Discord and or the Oasis PvP Discord. Right? Okay, awesome. Well, there you go, everybody. Now you know, to our fine listeners, if you want to participate in this, it sounds like a great way to it's basically like playground mode, right? Where you line up and I choose Johnny, I choose Sally, and yeah, okay.
That was just a potential for that, but right now
Yeah.
we have it set up to where it's just you come and you jump into the pool and we assign you with your best possible team.
Okay. Well, still.
Okay,
Still kind of
That's
playground
good.
mode. That's good.
That's good to hear, because I would be worried that if
Yeah.
I were to jump in, I'd probably get picked last again.
Sure, yeah, exactly. And these are the things that we're trying to prevent, And one of the things that's really true is every single week consistently, the majority of teams is put together from people who have solo queued. So it's not like you're going up against a bunch of pre-mades too. And I'll tell you, even in the last 2 weeks, we've had four teams sign up for the Gosu Cup because they've played, and they're like, yo, we had so much fun playing like together. After the tournament, we started queuing more just after the tournament, and we did really good. And we've been queuing like for a good bit now. So 4 teams in the last 2 weeks that have come together because they said, hey, yeah, I'll solo queue, and next thing you know, they have an arena team. They've got people that they
Nice.
push with consistently, and they're not glads, they're not whatever, like, but because they were like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. They've got a solid arena team. I'm not saying you will find one, but it's a great way to find one.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the key parts is trying to find like-minded people that work with your schedule to do your thing. That's
Exactly.
one of the hard. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, guys. Well, hey, let's get right into the actual subject of analysis. And like we talked before, we've changed the setup here, so the news is going to come after. So we'll roll right into that subject stuff.
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
All right. I love that. So today, and the reason why Bolt is here, is to discuss the Destruction Lock version of RLS. So, first and foremost, hey Bolt, let's get you talking here. So, obviously, we're talking Destruction Warlock, Shaman for your healer, but for Rogue, we didn't really talk about this before. Are we talking assassination? Are we talking subtlety? Are we talking outlaw rogue? Like, which does it matter? Like, let's get into the specs here.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a little bit of variation in the way that you're going to play the comp, depending on what spec your rogue is actually playing. This varies a lot because subtlety will sort of play off the strengths of Destro's ability to one-shot a little bit more than assassination will. So assassination will go from more of the, myself being the Arsham and my rogue will go try to solo a healer or a target behind the pillar, or that's, far away and close to a pillar. And all we really need from the Destro Lock in that sense is Curse of Fragility to reduce the health, because Vendetta and cooldowns from an Assassination Rogue are so strong, along with Purges, along with Flame Shock, Lava Burst coming in, stuff like that. In terms of when we're playing sub, we're really looking at setting up the Destro Lock to do massive amounts of damage. And so when you're playing sub Destro RLS, it's more of you're looking for opportunities where the enemy team is going to be stacked up, because when a team stacks up versus a sub rogue, it lets the rogue do a whole lot of CC that the Destro doesn't necessarily need to be there for, or doesn't need to cast a fear for. So when we're thinking about this, it's more like, okay, if we can get a setup on, let's say we're fighting Pally Hunter Priest, or Ret Pally Hunter Disc Priest. So let's say that we find a moment when the Ret Pally is near the Disc Priest. Well, we can set up on the Ret Pally with a Kidney Shot and a blind onto the Priest. Assuming the Priest doesn't have a trinket, maybe he does. Let's say that he doesn't in this example. Since we're so close to him, that allows my Rogue to instantly sap him off of that blind. And that doesn't take much out of my Rogue. Whereas if they weren't stacked, it would require my Rogue to peel off of the Ret, go and try to get that sap, and then reconnect to the Ret. Or it would require my Warlock to fear. If my Warlock has to fear, he's doing less damage in his window of opportunity, which typically involves, Dark Soul, on use, Racial. And so when you're looking at the sub version, you're looking at a more setup-based comp, playing to Destro one-shotting and sub's massive amount of control. When you're looking at the Assass version, you're looking more at, just turboing down a target and just playing to get to the third Vendetta, because it's typically where you start to see cooldowns from the enemy team start to thin out real heavily. Because the first one, they have Pain Sup, or they have, Bop, or what have you, or Roar Sacrifice. And then the second one, they'll have, their trinket up for it. And then the third one is where you can kind of play with it a little bit more and pull their trinket with blind, and then swap a healer, and they don't have a bop or anything like that. You can cross CC the Ret with a Destro Lock Succubus or something similar to that.
Okay.
In terms of Outlaw, it changes even more. Outlaw's kill window now is more playing around that 1 minute 30-second blind cooldown.
Wow. Okay.
It's incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful, especially because when you start to play that higher level, landing things like blinds actually does become harder, because priests are watching your movements. They're trying to pay attention to where you're positioning, whether or not you're turning your character. And then that range. So you have to be in a certain range. I believe it's 20 yards for sub in Assass in order to blind. But with Outlaw, I think it's 30 yards. And that can be a big change if the enemy team is not used to seeing a Outlaw Rogue. They're like, oh my god, how did he blind me from that far away? I wasn't expecting that, so I didn't use my death. I instead used another global. And now I have to panic trinket this because, I wasn't able to prepare for it. Well, now blind is on a 1 minute 30-second cooldown, and your trinket's on a 2 minute cooldown.
Yeah.
And so that
There's
next setup,
your 30-second window.
yeah. Now the game goes down from being a 4 minute game where we're looking at Assass for 3 sets of Vendetta to, a 2 minute game, because you don't have a trinket, we have tricks for extra damage, and we have outlaw damage, and we can just Infernal and frag you, and that's pretty much it. So it changes up a lot, and there's pluses and minuses of all three comps. In terms of pushing on ladder, I would always rate Destro Assass Arsham or Destro Assass Healer to be the easiest variation to do it with, just because Assass's constant pressure and threat makes it much easier to pull mistakes from the enemy team, which in turn lets your Destro Lock exploit those mistakes. And at the same time, the Destro Lock does not need to be there to do that. Whereas when you're playing sub, it's much more setup based, and you have to have certain levels of cross CC being put out, and it's way more on the Destro, who can get stopped a variety of ways: an in cap, a sundering, a kick, a fear, a reflect, a grounding, stuff like that. And then the outlaw one is more for like, if you're going to series a team, like in one of the tournaments that Andelin was mentioning, we've actually seen that happen. We didn't see it with Destro, but we did see it with Boomy Assass, and that was done by Tiber and Nick. They actually played outlaw their last game to win a series, and it completely threw the other team off, because of the Tricks of the Trade buff that the
Yeah,
Boomy
they weren't
got,
expecting it. Yeah,
it was insane. But yeah,
interesting. I can see definitely how you really need, as an opposing team, really need to know the differences on that rogue and just how much that one spec change can change the whole the expectation of gameplay and how to be able to work around that. So
yeah.
I guess it would be fair to say, in the way people like to describe things, the Destro assassination is more of a PvE style because it's just the turbo burn down rather than the other ones require, it sounds like, a bit more setup and work and a bit more PvP awareness. Would that be?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I think that you know, it's not exactly out of this world to sap out of blind with the number of dance charges that um, sub will have, but it's more about knowing that as sub, the setup is so different because you have to understand when you have your stun DRs, when you can effectively cross. Does your Destro Lock even
Mhm.
have any damage at this point? And what is going to stop him from doing damage? Whereas when you do it with the Assassin Rogue, all you need is, well, not all you need, but you can get really far if you just kidney a target in front of your Destro Lock or within 40 yards of your Destro Lock, and he can get a frag out and then
Yeah.
throw out 2 conflags on top of that because conflag will crit upwards of 22k. Um, and when you mix that in, it makes it more of that PvE turbo comp. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I know we've talked with Azerite traits and how much they are important and how they've really kind of added in that extra level of gameplay and additional opportunities. Is there any specific game Azerite traits that you want to be able to see specifically that the DPSers are using that really helps make that comp work better? Or is it is there anything specific there that you're aware of or no?
Yeah, and a little bit of this is subject to change currently, just because we did go through, 8.1 is out now. There were a lot of changes
True.
to Azerite traits. Um, but I believe Destro is still the same. Destro is going to primarily look for flashpoint traits. Flashpoint traits are going to give the Destro Lock very high amounts of haste. When they have an immolate on a target or when they cast immolate on a target that is above 80% health, they gain X amount of haste. When you have 3 stacks of that, or 3 traits of that, or even 2 traits of that, when you lead with a conflagrate on the target that you're going to kill, or any target, you actually get something called backdraft. Backdraft further increases your haste, meaning that you cast the Chaos Bolt faster. When you mix that in with flashpoint traits, you end up getting close to a 1-second casted Chaos Bolt. Which, yeah, exactly. Which
my gosh.
It's not horrifying 80% of the game, but if you have a 1-second casted Chaos Bolt coming at you with Infernals, and that Destro Lock is running Supremacy basically increases the damage of Chaos Bolt by 8% per shard the Warlock has spent. So if you're fighting a Destro Warlock and he gets 2 Rain of Fires out or 3 Rain of Fires out, it's actually happened last week.
Yeah.
The Destro Lock that I play with, Drexia, he got 3 Rain of Fires out, and I think he was up to 9 or 10 or 11 stacks, which ends up being 9 times 8, 72%, and all the way up through 88% increased damage on that Chaos Bolt. Now you mix that in with Dark Soul, and you mix that in with On Use and Racial and Sky Fury, that becomes 110,000 bolt that just hits you in 1 second.
Wow.
So, and that seriously happened last week. That happened last week. He loaded it up and cracked a shaman for 110,000, killed him straight through Nature's Guardian.
Wow. That's no longer a Destro. That's no longer a bolt. That's a bazooka.
That's like Kim Jong-un cleave.
Okay. You got 3 types of bolts. You got baby bolts, you got normal bolts, and then you got daddy bolts. Thugonomics,
right?
Yeah, Thugonomics knows how to get the daddy bolts out, and Drexia knows how to get some real big daddy bolts out as well. But that's kind of when we're talking about those traits and those talents, being able to fire off spells that fast. And it doesn't only do it for Chaos Bolt. You can sit there and have really fast cast on Fear and stuff like that.
Yep.
So that's kind of what you're looking at from the Destro Lock point of view, and that stays pretty standard across all 3 variations of the comp. When you shift over to the rogue. If the rogue's playing assassination, they're going to want to play double battlefield precision. And battlefield precision basically puts a debuff on the target, increasing the damage the target takes from the rogue's attacks. It has a stack of 25, and it can do a ton of damage. If any of you guys know Peekaboo, he's a rogue that streams. Those are the traits that he runs. It will very regularly top his damage done as an assassin rogue because each act of damage causes your battlefield focus to proc. And so when you're looking at an assassination rogue, they have garrote ticking, rupture ticking, deadly poison ticking, their auto attacks going off, and their special abilities and finishers going off, along with elaborate planning increasing their damage done by 10% every time they use a finisher. You start getting all of these little damage, all this little damage going off at various times, proccing your battlefield focus so consistently. And that damage adds up very, very fast, and it's part of the reason that you see and that the strat becomes the rogue soloing so much because they do that, and they have the fragility, which you've heard me mention a couple of times. For those that don't know, it's a curse that Destro Warlocks have that reduce the target's health by 15%. So right away, instant cast, put a curse on the enemy, they have 15% less health going into big damage coming out of a rogue, and it becomes very, very scary.
It's a game changer.
Yeah, exactly. And as for sub, the traits have varied a little bit. I'm not too positive on if they're the same way.
No worries.
But primarily when the rogue that I was playing with, his name was Jake, he played one that increased his damage through, I believe, I can't remember the actual icon that the sub rogue uses to increase their damage and give them energy back. But
I don't know either.
that one has changed. I know that one has changed. I'm just not up to date on that one.
Okay.
For Resto Shaman specifically, it was Surging Tides, Pack Spirit, and those were the two that you really wanted on your pieces. So Pack Spirit is on the defensive rings. If any of you have access to Absturge's stream, he has a clip that has about 2,000 views of him playing with one hand, running around a map, not leaving Ghost Wolf, not pressing a single button, and just Ghost Wolf is healing him the entire time through a survival hunter, damaging him. And this wasn't at this wasn't at some random MMR. This was 2600 MMR in twos. This hunter knew how to do damage, and survival does a lot of damage. And Ghost Wolf and running away was able to sustain Absturge through that. It's a very powerful cooldown.
I saw a clip that Sidu did where he is sitting in raptor form, Ghost Wolf raptor form, behind a pillar with a warrior just going full on ham on him, and he's leaning back in his chair with his hands behind his head. He's not even touching his keyboard, and his health doesn't move.
Yeah, that's the strength of Pack Spirit. And there's actually 2 clips of that, and they're back-to-back clips in the same game. He goes 54 seconds without putting his hands on the keyboard of this warrior just DPSing him. It is incredible. However, that one will be changing pretty soon because it got its effectiveness reduced by 80% as of today. So no more of that. Yeah, it definitely needed that. So there's going to be less of that. And then Surging Tides was the trait that when you Riptide it gave the target a shield. Very, very powerful. It basically made it so that Resto Shamans didn't really have to cast. Due to Warlock's squishiness, it was much more likely that a Shaman had to cast while healing a Warlock, strictly because they're very immobile and they take a lot of damage. But in like Boomy DH or a comp similar, you would see the Shaman, as soon as things start hitting 50%, for some reason they just start going up in health, and that's because you would get an 18 to 25k shield on the target that you just pressed Riptide on, and Riptide was nothing to snuff at either because your heals do more as mastery. Your heals do more the lower a target it is. And so
the delta between max and current health is affected by the mastery. So exactly. I can see how that definitely plays in together. Wow.
Yeah. But now what you'll be looking at is actually a trait. I can't remember the exact name, but it is the same icon as tidal waves. for Resto Shaman. And what it does is it increases the effectiveness of your tidal waves, which is a buff you get when you Riptide. It lowers the cast time of Healing Wave and increases the critical strike chance of Healing Surge. And it increases those effects further by 5% per trait that you have, and you also will heal the target for 1,000 or more per trait when you heal them next. And that's kind of what the consensus has been for shamans in this new patch, where we're moving away from the Riptides because Riptide has been nerfed and because we no longer play with Rippling Waters, which gave us 2 times the Riptide charges. So
Okay.
you'll be looking at a little bit of a delta there. And then Chain Heal is looking to be the new spec for Resto Shamans this patch. I got to test that this morning, and you can get some very, very ridiculous numbers with that. You can get the cast time of Chain Heal down to 0.8 seconds. And you can also get Chain Heal to hit for 150,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's quite a big heal. I was testing that this morning with Drexy. It's a combination of using the Spirit Link talent along with a Sky Fury totem down and Earth Shield on the target. And I hit him for 150,000, and that's just the first person getting hit by it. The second person, I think it's a 30% drop off. So the second person would still get hit for, around 100,000.
Wow.
And then if you have Ascendance up, then that gets duplicated.
Yep.
And it's very, very strong. And then you also have the new talent, the new honor talent for Arsham, where if you use it, your Healing Rain and Chain Heal have their critical strike chance increased by 20%. And when they crit, they have a chance to dispel the target of all magic debuffs. That does include CC. Today, CD was testing it out, queued into a Shadow Priest, had a full row of dots on him, got stunned by the Shadow Priest. It dispelled all of his dots and the stun. Then he got silenced, and it dispelled the silence immediately.
What? Oh my gosh!
So that's definitely going to be something that's going to need to be looked at, and it has no internal cooldown. And so it was dispelling Trill, and it was dispelling Sam at the same time.
No way.
It is almost exactly like what Andalin was talking about earlier with
dirty.
the RPG, wherein he's able to mass dispel constantly. As long as you're in that healing raid, you are going to get dispelled constantly, which is going to be something interesting when we see the rise of S-Priest and AF Warlocks that we're kind of seeing today. Dot-heavy comps like that historically have had some trouble with Shamans and are typically played by Shamans, go figure. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, to see how quickly or not quickly that ends up getting adjusted, because currently it is very, very, very powerful, especially when you factor in that if you're running the Spirit Link talent, you actually get increased healing from that Healing Rain as well. So there are quite a few factors. As you can see, Arsham is very it's
The utility there.
spec.
Oh my gosh.
Spec that's just got like 6 different things affecting 6 other things,
Mhm.
and they just compound to make this this monster of a healer. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is for the traits and stuff like that. For defensive traits, I mean, it depends on what you're queuing into. Azurite Fortification is always a really strong one, especially since it's got some bugs with things like Ring of Peace, where you can continuously proc it. And then
Oh, I didn't know
Gem
about
Eye
that.
can be really good as well. Yeah, it's pretty big memes if you ask me. But and then actually I have the spell here. So Spirit Link, you link yourself and 2 closest allies together. When linked, the damage is distributed up to 25%. Linked targets receive 100% increased healing from your Chain Heal and Healing Rain. So,
Oh
it's
my
quite a bit
gosh.
of healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
Wow. I'm just imagining also, like, that's, you're just talking arena. I'm imagining now the power of a Chain Heal R Shaman in a rated BG.
That's the big question, because historically Arshams have not been a healer that you see in RBGs.
Nope.
It's really hard to justify bringing them, especially in prior expansions when they were literally, I'm sure that most viewers and you all can attest to the train the blue strategy that existed for millennia
Yep.
in this game. And so they were never really brought. And even to this day, they don't really have too much to offer in terms of RBGs. But, if you're out there cracking 100k chain heals on your main target, then
Well, not just that, but drop a Healing Rain and all of a sudden all that CC and all the dots and everything go away.
exactly.
Like,
Which could be huge on an FC as well, who gets, a
Yeah.
5 row of Stable Affliction dots, Dark Glares popped, and oh look, he's dispelled.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Okay. So my mind's just blown. Wow. Okay. Normally we also talk about this. Sorry, we haven't talked actually totally fully about the shaman. We delved into a bunch there, but you kind of mentioned this briefly with a couple of the spells. Shaman don't just heal, right? Like they all you also do damage, and you mentioned that with something. So what exactly and how potent is it? How potent is that damage? Because I think you have what's it? Lava Lash is one
well,
of them.
we have Flame Shock, we have Lava Burst,
Oh,
and
Lava
then we
Burst,
also have
yeah.
Electrocute from our Honor talents, which when we purge, it causes damage to be taken by the target as long as we've removed a buff. And so when you're looking at the way our shamans will play, there are a couple Arshams that pop into your head when you think of, um, just pure utilization of the spec. And those shamans are Absturge, Sea-Doo, and to me, the other one is Danksight. Danksight might be a less familiar name to some, but he truly, I believe, encompasses the offensive shaman playstyle. Um, as a shaman, you have Capacitor Totem, which is a stun. You have Hex, which is an 8-second long polymorph
Mm-hmm.
that is also a curse and can't be magic dispelled. You have Purge, that is a very low mana cost and is able to deal damage. You have Flame Shock and Lava Burst. Lava Burst can crit up towards 13k. You have Sky Fury to bolster your team's damage, and Sky Fury affects a lot of things. A lot of people go, oh, well, Sky Fury, it's for casters. It increases, the critical strike damage of healing spells and damage spells. But when you think about the classes, there are very few classes that are pure melee damage. So DHs get a boost from this. Assassination rogues get a boost from this. Enhancement shamans get a boost, etc., etc. And so the best R shamans that I've seen and that I've queued into are the ones that understand when to go offensive. This typically is, when you're fighting something like an R Druid comp or a Disc Priest comp, if you can go 1-to-1 and pre-clean their buffs, meaning pre-purge their buffs before they go for Raptures, and Rapture is a main Disc Priest CD that increases the absorption from the absorption effect of their Power Word Shield by 200%.
Yeah.
It's a major cooldown. And if you can just trade blow for blow on that, constantly purging it, then they get no true value out of it. And they have to either open up their tree with a penance, which opens them up for a lockout, or they have to Shadow Mend, which is a pretty awful heal to have to use. On top of that, you have Sheer, and Sheer is by far and away one of the strongest kicks the game has ever seen. Next to Rogue Kick, it is probably the strongest.
Well,
A range interrupt. Sorry?
what's the range on that? I can't remember.
The range on Wind Sheer is 30 yards.
Wow.
Which is very, very strong.
Yeah. That's
so,
that's almost any map in Arena.
Yeah, and so when you're looking at the best way to, utilize your character versus a comp like, let's say, our Druid Turbo, right? Let's say that the our Druid just used Overgrowth, they're going really offensive, and you're able to land CC on the R Druid, and his hots are, starting to fall off, and you notice that Life Bloom is still up. When you purge Life Bloom, it gives them a heal. But previously, when Focused Growth was a talent, when you purge, it would remove a 3-stack bloom from the target. And the way Life Bloom worked is if you did it if you reapplied Life Bloom within the last 3 seconds, it operated in a pandemic effect, where it would proc the large heal from Life Bloom, but also reset its duration.
Okay.
And that was, part of the skill cap for our Druid.
Yeah.
But if you could purge that, you effectively force them to spend 3 globals to get that focused growth back up to its full efficiency.
Nice.
All right.
And so that's something that you really look to do. But at the same time, you need to know when to push in, right? So if you're fighting a Windwalker DK or a Death Knight or TSG, because TSG is going to be a pretty prevalent comp, I'm thinking, in this next patch.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, right?
Yeah.
And typically a DK setup is to, or DHDK for example, even the DH setup with the DK is to grip into double stun. Grip is a 30-yard range. You can heal from 40 yards. When grip is off cooldown, you should be playing 40 yards away so that you can see when the DK turns and begins moving towards you, so that you can throw down grounding totem, which eats all spells for the next 3 seconds, and death grip is a spell.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he turns and starts running at you, you throw down that grounding totem, and his grip goes into the grounding totem, effectively nullifying their setup or making them adjust their setup. So maybe the DH comes out to imprison you, but that lets your lock know, hey, they're going out to imprison him. The DH is the one with the stun, and then your Warlock ports, and they have no setup now because you were able to read the play and ground the game-winning grip. And so it's really about knowing what comps to play into, or what comps to play on top of, and what comps to sort of maintain a further distance away. And that doesn't mean that you can't go for CC and you can't purge. It just means that you're cognizant of the things that could happen if you play in those positions. Alongside that, shamans are also very good at stopping CC with that grounding totem and with tremor totem. Tremor totem will stop fear and mind control, for example. Those are very, very powerful CCs that will lead into other CCs. So being able to pre-tremor those effects is very important from the Archon point of view.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, are there any other healers that really work well with this comp, or is it pretty much just the shaman? Because from what I'm hearing, it just sounds like the resto shaman really just complements everything else that they're going on. They bring in the extra CC in the form of Hex that doesn't have a diminishing return with everything else that you guys are running. They can help set up for the blinds, and they slowed the team with Earthroot totems and things like that. I mean, is there really any other healer that can kind of step in and pinch hit for this comp, or is it pretty much go with the shaman and roll with that?
So historically, Arsham, I personally believe, was the best up until Legion Season 6-ish. And it might have been before that, but we didn't see it too much. Holy Paladins are very, very strong at healing Destro Locks and a rogue alike. The reason is because melee wings lend so much damage to the assassination rogue, and the assassination rogues go if you're playing that version of it, right? So the rogue kidneys, he pops Vendetta, he's doing his damage, and then he's also got an H-Pal doing quite a fair amount of damage through Judgment, Crusader Strike, Consecration. And then the Paladin can also hodge out of the kidney shot, effectively extending that CC chain. And the Shaman can also cap stun, but it would end up being a shorter duration. And H-Pallies have a bit more damage when they have their melee wings up and they're going into somebody than a Shaman does at any other given point in the arena. The other thing that H-Pals lend themselves to in that comp is the ability to drag games out. You can drag out games much longer on an H-Pal with a Destro Lock or with an AF-Lock than you can on a Shaman. And that is because of things like Sacrifice being a 100% damage reduction, Blessing of Protection, Freedom so that the Warlock can kite if he needs to, various things like that. Now that may change since Paladins now only have one charge of that Sacrifice. Shamans may well indeed be the primary healer that overshadows the Holy Pally now, but those are some things that H-Pal is able to do to really benefit the comp. And as well, for those that are listening, Holy Paladins have Hand of Reckoning. That's their taunt. If you're queuing into a Hunter team and you have a macro that is /target arena pet 1, /target arena pet 2, and /target arena pet 3, and like I was saying, let's say we queue into a Hunter. When you see that Hunter harpoon to you or disengage to you, you hit that keybind, it will taunt his pet, and the pet AI will force the pet to run over and attack you even though you're in a trap, and it will break the trap for you because the pet will run over and melee attack it. And you will always have taunt up before trap is up. So this is something you can do infinitely until
So if you are in a frozen trap, you can taunt the pet
prior to that.
Okay, so you have to read it coming.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly,
okay.
exactly.
I thought for just a second there that we had just broken the game, and I'm like, wait a second, what?
No.
So
Not that much.
not
We
that
haven't broken
bad.
the game
Not
that
that
much,
bad.
but yeah, you definitely have that ability to taunt that target or that pet over to you, and then it's running towards you as the hunter is putting the trap on you,
Mhm.
and then before he realizes it, your trap has been broken. Really, really hurting the CC chain of any hunter comp because an 8-second CC is what they rely
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Also works for things like blinds and other things, but those are very, very hard to do. And it's also quite easy for a hunter to negate that from happening. It just requires some stance switches from the hunter onto his pet. But
Okay.
we'll leave that on the quiet end so all our healers can have some fun.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
Well, awesome. Now,
Winston.
yeah. So
Yeah.
along with the comps, I mean, which faction do you feel kind of favors this comp? Are there any specific character racials that really help out with making this a better situation to roll with, or is it just anything really works?
Previously, I would always kind of point towards playing Horde if you could, just because the meta was always so stun heavy, and shamans are very susceptible to dying in stuns. As of lately, though, I don't really think that you'll have too much issue playing any one race or the other. They all have some form of something that kind of pushes them along. I think like your worst option on a shaman would probably be troll, just because with dwarf you have stone form, which removes things like silence from you, or root beams. You can get out of those. And then you have orc, that's going to be that stun reduction, and then you have panda, which allows you to panda in cap into a cap stun into a hex as a form of solo CC, um, which can be very, very powerful at different times. For the Destro Lock and Rogue, the Destro Lock almost always wants to be orc, just because of that added damage from the Blood Fury racial. The haste isn't really all that effective because they're already drowning in it from different traits and things like that. And then also the stun reduction, hardiness, stuff like that. And the rogue can pretty much be just about any race that they want. Purge is really good for a rogue to have if they want to play Blood Elf, but Orc is going to be very powerful, and so is Undead. Peekaboo is swapped between Pandaren into a Goblin into an Undead and has had no issues maintaining the rating that he's at. He is a great player, of course, but he can play multiple. If he's able to play multiple different, races, then there will be no issue with maintaining your rating while you play those racials. It's just about learning how to use and abuse those racials.
Okay. So there isn't a previous expansions and thing. It's always like if you haven't been human, then you haven't been able to play, or if you haven't been orc, you haven't been able to play, and that's not really the case right now for this particular comp.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not.
Cool. Excellent.
I guess. So knowing all that, knowing everything you've just kind of gone over, strategies. Let's talk what's the strategy for playing this comp?
Well, let's go with your opener. What's your goal in the open?
Good point.
So our primary goal, it doesn't shift too much from comp to comp, but I will use one comp just as a point of reference, and that's going to be Pally Hunter, so Ret Paladin Hunter teams. Any healer, it doesn't really matter which one. Our main goal in that opener, as all three specs of Rogue, as any RLS game that we play, our main goal is to pull major CDs out of the enemy team prior to my lock having to use a major offensive. And so Infernos are where the damage comes from. And so we want to pull cooldowns without having to use Infernos. And that typically means that we land a sap on the healer, mark for death kidney shot on the Ret Paladin, with a seduce going on to the hunter from my warlock. And so in that situation, what you've got is an 8-second CC on the hunter, you have a 6-second stun on the Ret, and you have a 8-second sap onto the healer. Your shaman wants to move into position to be on top or near the healer, not directly on top, but within range to land totems, hexes, stuff like that. And what you're trying to do there is get at least one trinket and one cooldown. So a trinket paints up, a trinket roar sacrifice, 2 trinkets, or something of that nature. And in the best case scenario, you'll get things like bubble because the ret sees 2 chaos bolts coming at him. He's taking damage from your rogue, and he freaks out and he presses his bubble. That's the best case scenario, because if the priest doesn't trinket the sap, which he shouldn't, then it's on the other 2 people on his team to inhibit the incoming CC and to keep the ret from dying, which typically means trinket from the ret, roar of sacrifice from the hunter, and the bubble from the ret. Not the divine shield, but the other one that explodes and does damage. That's typically what we see in the opener. And we'll also typically see the hunter trinket. So we'll usually see 2 trinkets and 2 decent CDs.
So you're really not planning.
Wow.
You're not playing defensive at all. You're going right in. You're getting the cross CC going, and then you're choosing your target, which in the example you're using is usually the ret, and that's your go.
Yeah, and you can swap the ret for the hunter. The reason that I like to go the ret, and we change the strat a lot. The reason I like to go the ret is because I don't like having a ret there to do things like, bopping a target or, pre-sanking something or something of that nature, or dispelling poisons if they're doing that. It's just not something that I want to have to deal with. Whereas, the hunter, he's not going to be stacked on top of his ret typically. He's going to be a little bit farther away. And so he has a range issue that he has to deal with. And then he also is susceptible to CC being that far away. But no, you definitely don't want to play defensive in the opener as this comp. This comp is completely based off of momentum. And I'm talking more along the lines of the sub one right now. Much more based off of that momentum. And so opening with like a cold blood, or opening with a Mark for Death Kidney into the cold blood cheap shot with, a dance and maybe possibly even blades going out. Then on that second go is when you look to pull, those huge CDs out of the team, or you give a team member. So, the ret's scared because we've been going to ret the last go was on the ret. He doesn't have a trinket. He's scared of dying in bomb. So what we do is we swap it up. I hex the hunter, and my lock seduces the ret, and we set up on the priest. And the priest isn't expecting it, and he'll a lot of the time get gibbed. And the way that you set that up perfectly is for your lock to start pre-casting a chaos bolt while targeting the ret paladin, but he's actually casting a focus chaos bolt onto the priest. That gives them no inclination of what you're going to do, and most of the time the ret or the DPS that my lock is targeting will freedom steed run clear across the map to a pillar that is away from their healer because they think that they're being targeted.
Yep.
Which means if they get no sank on their healer, and their healer just gets, annihilated by infernals and, massive chaos bolt damage because they're just not
Nice
effective.
misdirect.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that idea of doing a slash focused cast while targeting and make them think that it's coming at them when it's actually going somewhere else. That is.
Now you're talking about goes. So what determines when you're able to go? Is it just the diminishing returns on the cooldowns, or is it diminishing cooldowns on the CC, diminishing cooldowns, or is it just you guys have a pretty good consistent pressure that whenever you're able to, you just go?
The entire basis for the sub version is going to be stun DRs. We go with stun DRs. If we ever get to a point where we're not going with stun DRs, that's when we lose.
So every 20 seconds, you should be going on the offense in order to apply pressure.
Yes. Because the best way to stop a team from CCing your healer, and the best way to stop a team from killing you, is to kill them. Go figure. But
Best defense is a good offense.
Yes, if the ret paladin has no bubble and he realizes that he's off of stun DR and my rogue dance cheap shots him, that's a real bad place for him to be, especially if we have smoke bomb. And so going off of those DRs is incredibly important. It doesn't matter if we don't have cooldowns. We can scare people into pressing something through, again, that fragility, reducing somebody's health by 15%, and, playing offensively or your Archon playing offensively and your Rogue dealing as much damage as he can. You can still force cooldowns with that. And then, you typically will win in that second Infernal setup, where, they don't have trinkets because Infernal is a 3-minute cooldown. They don't have trinkets for that Inferno goal. And that's when it shifts from, your go in the opener was a sap on the healer. It shifts into a kidney shot on the red into, your Rogue steps away possibly and cheap shots the Disc Priest into a full Hex that has no Dispel while the Hunter is put into a full Seduce. And there you go. You have your 3v1 setup again in your favor. And that's what you look for is, and sometimes it depends because the stun DR will be up before your Shaman's Hex CD is up. So sometimes your Shaman might want to run Voodoo Mastery to reduce that cooldown on Hex to 20 seconds so that you can really be popping every 20 seconds, because being able to stun into Hex, 12 seconds of CC with a Seduce every, or a Fear even every 30 seconds, you're able to set those goes up consistently and kill in that manner.
Okay. All right. And so during that 20 seconds of diminishing return time, what does your team look like? Are you staying in the fight and applying pressure, or are you guys pulling back and forcing the team to come to you if they want to engage?
So during that 20-second window where you don't have any stun DRs, you pray. And pray that you don't just die instantly. Because Destro Lock does not. It's different now because they just got buffed with armor, but Destro Locks get evaporated by everything. It's ridiculous, and so you're looking to make sure that your Destro Lock does not die, and so the focus shifts from the Rogue being the leader, because the Rogue is the leader in our goes. He's the one who sets it up. It shifts from he has no responsibility in the Destro Lock living after that go is over, because he can't really use his stuns because that makes our go be farther away, right? Because now stuff is, on DR again. And so it shifts to being communication with the Resto Shaman and the Destro Warlock. The Destro Warlock I've played with, we played for, 3-4 years now. Hello? And so we have a good line of communication wherein, he lets me know what he has. I let him know what I have. Is CC coming into me? There are times where he'll swap his pet out. So at the end of the go, as the team is, about to come back into us because they realize our go is over, he'll summon an imp to dispel the trap that comes after the Hodge. And then he'll swap back to the Succubus for when we're ready to go. Now, that's all through an understanding of the comp that we're fighting. They're going to win in a Hodge trap. And so I'm doing that thing that I talked about earlier. I'm playing 40 yards away, watching this ret, watching the way he's turning, the way he's adjusting himself to try to ground that Hodge. If I can ground that Hodge, then it makes it much easier for us to kind of hang out and relax. But it is very, very likely that if you are fighting something like Turbo or DH Warrior or a DH DK, that you'll have 2 goes and you'll die before your Infernals come back up, because the damage that team is going to put out onto a Warlock who cannot move is just astronomical. I mean, if you think about the times that you've seen, Trill die with Sidu on his team, or when you think about the times that you see Zaryu die without blocking, those are classes that can move. Those are classes that have prismatic barrier. It might be small, but they have something there. They have temporal shield. They have darkness, whatever. Where you see Sam hit really low HP on his Boomkin. Those classes can move and have a bunch of things to press. Destro Warlock has a wall that is a 3-minute cooldown.
Yeah.
And then they have coils, but coils are also sometimes going to be part of our go. And so it's a risk to throw those out. But sometimes it is necessary because he needs to be healed. And there's just not enough healing that I'll be able to do. I don't think that there's any double melee comp prior to today that a Resto Shaman could just sit there. Like that Riptide thing that, you just sit there and spam Riptide when you play DH Bimkin, that does not work with a DH. Or with a Warlock. It does not work. Your Warlock will die in 6 seconds because the amount of damage he takes is insane. And that's why when you see Destro Warlocks play, you see them play with a Fire Mage. because a fire mage or another scary caster. So
Mm-hmm.
like in Legion Season 7, you saw him play with Shadow Priests. And the reason is because Shadow Priests and Fire Mages are such scary casters if you leave them alone. I have a clip on my stream of a KFC running full speed ahead at my Destro Warlock. He hits 10% in the opener immediately, but because they were so focused on him, I sit there, I poly their pally, I cast a Greater Pyro, throw a meteor down, combust before the meteor hits, and I 100-0 this pally with a fragility on him. No bubble, anything. And so the next game that we play against them, they tried to, address that issue and come back towards me a little bit more than the prior game, which pulls stress off the Destro lock, stuff like
It's
that.
kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, so after the opener and after your recovery, that 20-second window that you're going on, it's just kind of a rinse and repeat where you're just going to be constantly cycling through that stun DR, rotating your CC so that you keep everybody kind of scared of you guys. And just, it sounds to me like you're just going to be hitting them so hard that they're almost scared to push in on you guys because they've just gotten the crap kicked out of them.
Mm-hmm. That's very much what it's like. Within that period where you don't have Infernals, you're really still looking to pull things from that team. Because the more you pull before you have Infernals, the less they have when you do have Infernals. And the less you have in Infernals, the sadder you're going to be. Because like we were talking about earlier, you can ramp that Chaos Bolt up and really, really do some damage if you're given that leeway to do so. And so,
And so that's kind of a secondary win condition.
Exactly. You can win outside of Infernals. Okay. It's just very, very rare, and it requires some major overlap from the enemy team. PHS and PHP are the two comps wherein it feels like we can pretty consistently go, I'd say 60-40 versus them if we play it pretty well. It seems like it can be a little bit hard for them if we're really in the groove and going off those stun DRs, landing those hexes constantly. But versus something like Mistweaver Turbo, it's a completely different story. We basically have 2 goes to win, and you have, or maybe 3 goes, but you need to get every single trinket, and you need to get almost every single defensive, or pray that the enemy team is playing Relentless on all 3 characters. People who play Relentless into Destro RLS pay for it every single time. I think that's how we've won the most games against Turbo and DH Warrior, when we should, you really shouldn't win versus those teams when you play Destro RLS, like ever. But when they play Relentless, what ends up happening is they run in, they get bombed on, and my lock stands on the bomb and just destroys them, and their Mistweaver or healer runs in to cocoon them or sack them or what have you. They get cheap shotted, they trinket into a full blind, and they die. That's typically how that one happens. With a pally, it's a little different because they'll bubble sack, but like a Mistweaver whose warrior decides to leap charge across the world in order to stop my Warlock's gate ends up getting kidney shot in battle stance and bombed on, and eats a really big Chaos Bolt straight to the face. So it becomes much harder for Destro RLS if you all 3 play trinket.
Okay. So you kind of alluded there on the comps that you should not win to, but what does counter RLS?
Things that counter RLS, again, it might change now, but the things that we struggle with the most previously are things like the DH Warrior, insane amount of damage, insane amount of utility. So things like, being in meta for the first 40 seconds of a game. That's insane when a Warlock's wall lasts for 8 seconds. That is absolutely ridiculous. And the Warlock also cannot move. Because as Destro, you don't play Port. You play Mortal Coil to set up the Coil Goes. And so you instantly die. It's really unfun. And then they also have things like Darkness, which absorb an entire Chaos Bolt, like it's nothing. You can throw 110k Chaos Bolt into a Darkness, doesn't matter. The Darkness absorbs it. Things like
Wow.
Nether Walk or Imprison on a Chaos Bolt, or meta jump immuning a Chaos Bolt, or being able to Blade Dance, and it's part of your damage abilities that are part of your rotation also make you have a 100% dodge chance, so you just can never be kidneyed. You also have mana burn, stuff like that. So it becomes very, very difficult. And then Sharpen Blade and Fear and all this other stuff. And it becomes very, very difficult for us to do anything because there's never a time where your healer needs to push into a continuous CC chain. They can just play 50 yards away. And it's so obvious when a rogue is going to waddle at you from 50 yards away. And so DH Warrior is a very hard one. Turbo is a very difficult one. Grounding Totem, Tremor Totem, Sundering being a knock, Cap Totem obviously killable but still irritating to deal with. Off heals coming in constantly. You still have the Sharpened Blade, the War Banner, the Duel, because you typically don't go Warriors, you typically go Shamans, so the Warrior will just duel the Chaos Bolts that hit for 20k and now they hit for 10k. And so you lose a lot to Warriors, a lot. Oh, W Impala, Warrior Mage Pally is the most impossible comp to beat for a Destro Warlock because you have 3 forms of CC as a Fire Mage. You have the Dragon's Breath into the ring, you kick the ring, they poly, you kick the poly, they ring, or you stop both and then they eventually land their CC anyway. Because the Warrior Storm Bolts, because it doesn't need to Storm Bolt the Warlock because the Warlock can't move. And then just the damage that W Impala puts out is really, really crazy. You could almost remove every CC that W Impala has, and you would be able to kill a Destro Warlock through casted heals from an Archon. And I'm not kidding. There have been games where we'll play Imp into it, and we'll dispel the first poly, Tremor the Fear, ground the Hodge, drop down and throw the Void Elf up top, port back up. Doesn't matter. The Warrior heroic leaps on top of the bridge. It's just impossible to get any breathing room for your Warlock against a lot of things like that. And so it's very, very difficult. And you have Spell Reflect, obviously, Rallying Cry, etc. And then I guess those are the 3 that I say that I typically just go are like, this is like impossible. And Thug Cleave. Thug Cleave is very
so tell me if I'm wrong here. So it sounds like in order to really take on your comp, what you have to do is you have to be able to dampen the hit of one of your goes.
Oh yeah.
And if you can kind of dampen that blow with like what you were saying, whether it's a duel or a darkness or something where your guys' big hit doesn't hit quite so hard that you're able to actually stay in the fight, it really kind of puts you guys on the back foot where they're not in danger anymore of pushing in against you.
Exactly. So when you think about it like this, right? Say we're playing into Warrior DH, right? I reference this a lot because it's one of the comps we've thought about the most on how to beat. When you queue into that comp, the Warrior really has no need to go battle stance. He'll kill you through being in D stance. His damage is it's not going to be impacted enough for him to care. So you'll fight a Warrior that sits D stance, and he's plate. So your sub rogue does no damage to him. He's D stance, so your Warlock's 25k bolts do even less because you're outside of Infernal. The DH, okay, you can try to hit him, but if you're fighting a good one that constantly has a main damaging ability that gives him 100% dodge, it's going to be very hard to stun him. And if you don't just kill him outright in a stun, then he's going to Nether Walk, he's going to Darkness, he's going to Incap, he's going to do a wide variety of other things. And DH is also still take 10% less magical damage, just baseline. So your choice is either hit a Warrior that does 20%, that you do 20% less damage to, or hit a DH that's hard to stun and takes 10% less damage, and then you have to deal with the reverse effects of each. So if you hit the DH, the Warrior is going to dual disarm. If you hit the Warrior, then the DH is going to incap, double stun, Darkness, whatever. And the moment that we fight a team like DH Warrior that runs away during Infernals is a game we lose. And we lose instantly. That's why it's so important for us to get a go that is super clean when we throw Infernals. Because if we don't and the enemy team runs away during Infernals, there's no class in this game that a Destro Lock can catch. There's not except for another lock. And even then, it's difficult because none of the other lock specs rely so much on the Havoc double coil. So a lot of them will play port. But there's no way that a Destro Lock can run at you and actually get to you if you're playing any other spec. And so if we drop Infernals and you all piece it around a pillar, it's over. Like there's no way for us, because the only time my Destro Lock is going to do damage is every 3 minutes. And we're not playing the Assassin version, so my Rogue isn't going to kill anything because sub does negative damage. And so if you run on Infernals, you win the game. That's the only time we kill. That's why we get 110k Chaos Bolt, because not enough people queue into Destro Locks to know that exactly how that works. And so they let him sit there and free cast 3 Rain of Fires, get 80% extra damage on a Chaos Bolt, and pop every cooldown and just free cast one directly into a player. And the only time that a Warlock can use Aura Mastery is when they wall, which is a 3-minute cooldown. And so you really have those goes every 3 minutes with a Warlock, and that's how people end up dying. Is they stand there and try to face tank Infernals and die, or they play that Relentless and get hit with Infernals and die. But if you run away,
they think they can survive because they're used to seeing a Destro Lock, and they're like, whatever.
Yeah,
right.
And you can do that a lot. You can do the whatever a lot, because 75% of the game is going to be whatever, this is nothing. It's the 25% of the time that Infernals are down, I'm going to die right now.
So that is that time mark there. Okay, beep.
Now kind of the other way is, what comps that you see that you're playing against that you're just like, gimme, we win, let's just
So funny enough, it's kind of comps that other people really, really hate to queue into. So like I was saying earlier, we have a pretty good chance against PHP and PHS. And so the kind of reason for that one is just because it's easier for us to kill Rets and Hunters than anything else. And then other rogue teams. And so RMX is typically a game that's very winnable and very in our favor. And then comps that will try to dampen, that have a cache that we can isolate. So like when we would queue into, say for example, RMX, then isolating the rogue or the mage is really easy, especially when you have a sub rogue on your team. And so I'd say that we have an easy time versus that. We have an easy time versus the PHX. We have a pretty easy time versus I would say most boomy comps, not DH boomy, but most boomy comps are pretty cut and dry for us, because they have very similar setups wherein it's every 3 minutes that they become really scary. They're scary throughout, but they become really scary in that 3-minute mark. And then DK teams right now are pretty easy as well, just because DK and Windwalker teams right now, just because they have no way to deal with the incoming damage. And then Pally teams are sometimes easier if we can get clean setups on Pallies as well.
So any comp that's trying to drag out the game, or it sounds like if you're playing against another setup comp that you guys really enjoy, that it's like, sure, we'll trade setup and we'll take our go, and you guys will try and have your go. And it sounds like with the way your guys' cooldowns work, that you're just going to have the bigger hit.
Yeah.
When you guys make your go.
And it's easier for us to stop, because like when we're fighting a DH Arms Warrior, us stopping their go is we never really stop their go. You know what I mean? Because like I said, 40 seconds of meta, you don't stop that go. Or Bladestorm, you don't stop any of that. You just you might stop the DH for like a couple seconds, but then he's going to come out and he's going to kill you. But if we fight an RMD and my rogue catches their rogue out of stealth, or they go and cheap shot me, and my rogue cheap shots their rogue before he connects to my lock, and then step cheap shots the mage, we can go right off of that. We can just throw 2 coils out and just go blind their healer, and we can just start pumping damage out. We can even throw Infernos out because it'll get a block. Now things like DH
Wow.
Boomkin, not so much. Like, we definitely don't like to queue into DH Boomkin or DHS Priest, specifically because DH Boomkin is every problem that we have with the DH, along with a druid who just is. I don't think you can kill druids or boomy druids. That's impossible, man. They frenzied regen, celestial guardian if they play it, guardian affinity, bear form, 2-star surges. Just a tragic thing there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
I think we've pretty much covered all the strategies that we can cover right now.
Yeah.
Andelin.
Yes.
I know you like positioning in that. That's an important, and I know it's an important thing in arenas.
Absolutely.
He's not reading the show notes.
He's not reading the show
Oh,
notes.
really? No, I'm not.
So, is there any positioning that, I mean, it sounds like to me from what we've talked about, it almost sounds like you want a little bit of a triangle going on where you want your rogue on your target. You want to be far enough away that you can see if anybody decides to come at, or if you want to be far enough away that you can see if anybody's going to come at the locks, and then your healer is far enough away to offer support and damage.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you guys want to be clumped together in a single group.
That's a really good way to kind of synopsize our comp. I would say it changes if we are fighting a comp like DH Boomy, strictly because boxes are really important in that regard. And so stacking up is a little bit better. Earthen and Healing Tide Totem, very, very strong if you use them together. And so it changes in that regard. But in general, yeah, your healer wants to be in a position where they can assist the rogue, also heal the lock, but be close enough to get CC on their healer while also maintaining a distance to see CC coming at them. Which sounds really hard, but it's not. A lot of teams will open themselves up to just you having a free corner to kind of do whatever you want. Our lock is always going to be getting destroyed near mid-map. The place where our lock will typically position in a place where there is the farthest point away from pillars on the map. So if that means a corner that is super far from a
It almost sounds kind of like bait.
Yeah, exactly. Against melee cleaves, that's exactly what it is. Against the double caster cleaves, it's a little bit different. But yeah, that's exactly what it is you want them to be really far away so that they can't just instantly turn around a corner and be away from Chaos Bolt. But otherwise, yeah, that's exactly how the positioning would work in that regard.
Okay. So, I mean, that's great for pillars. What about on the 3-dimensional maps, such as like Blade's Edge or
Mugambala?
Sewers.
Yeah, Mugambala.
So
Sewers, yeah.
Blade's Edge and Mugambala, the favor shifts into the locks a little bit because you can put gateways from the bottom to the top. That's very, very strong. And so the positioning changes a little bit. Your Destro lock will typically want to post up around your half of the top of the bridge. And your shaman will want to play on either of the slopes, and that kind of puts them in a position to both heal the lock, who should be standing on one edge of the bridge, so that the shaman can heal them, and then your rogue is kind of in the middle, doing damage and setting up CCs, because that means that the rogue is near your lock, the rogue is near your healer, and the rogue is near their healer, and he's close to both DPS to set up or stop CC that might be incoming. At the same time, when you're on Mugambala, it can be really, really important for your lock if they're playing Void Elf, for example, and they're getting tunneled and they're getting to like 15 or let's say 25, 30% health, to turn and throw their Void Elf behind them, real inconspicuous like, and then drop down. And the 2 melee will typically charge after, trying to finish, and then they can activate the Void Elf Racial and go back up. And abusing stuff like that has always been in the lock toolkit. If it transitions and someone is targeting your healer, if the melee cleave is going your healer instead, there is actually quite an interesting strat that I learned a couple years ago from watching an old Wrath of the Lich King video. It was a druid named Taximan. His videos are still on YouTube. But what he does is, if you're at an edge and you run up to it, and you have melee just tunneling you down, and you know you're getting low health, you run towards the edge. As soon as you get to the edge, or the very edge of the ledge, then you stop moving forward and you hit your space bar. And it takes a little bit of practice to get it going, but basically what happens is you run up, you stop, you jump, and then the 2 melee think that you jumped off. And so they go off, but you're still up top because you didn't jump off, you just went to the edge and hit space bar.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh man.
A friend of the show, Amboni, I saw one of his YouTube videos recently where he did a lot of that, and it was really funny to watch.
yeah, and Boney's a really
And he
good
put
shot
he put that classic AOL disconnect sound to it.
Mhm.
It was really funny to watch these people, like, he'd run up to the edge and jump in there, dun 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 dun, and you see the guy fall off the edge chasing
That's-
after him.
Oh.
That's how Taximan kind of did it. He did the song Jump. It's like, jump, jump. And it's just like all of these people just flying off the edge. And Boney's really good too. That's that Shadow Priest that
Yeah.
from content creation. He's really, really great player all around. I've watched a couple of his YouTube videos and he has some really great
We got to get
things.
him back on the show.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Mental note.
But those are kind of the positioning you want to kind of keep when you can. The worst map for Destro Lock right now, I would say, is Black Rook or Black Hook, whatever it is.
Hook Point,
Hook? No, it's not Hook Point.
Black Rook Hold.
You're talking about Blackbird Cold.
Yeah, Black Rook
Yeah.
Hold, because it's got so many pillars that are
Yeah.
so close to
Lots of line of sight.
everything, and it's just
Well, you
like,
can lost your healer by accident just by, the half wall.
yeah. My Destro Lock that's
That's-
watching the podcast right now says that it is Hook Point, but I disagree completely. Hook Point is way better than Black Rook Hold Arena. Black Rook Hold Arena is the worst map I have ever seen if you're playing caster that has any type of long cast time.
Well, if it's 1 second.
Yeah, see. But yeah, it varies a little bit in that regard. Also, purging backdraft can be something you can do to really shut down Destro Locks, because then they just lose a ton of haste on their cast bolts and it gives you more time to react to them. But yeah, for general positioning, that's what I'd say.
All right.
Well, sweet.
Andlin.
Yes.
All right. Are you on the show notes?
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
All right. Do you see the thing in fuchsia? In the color of a paladin?
Is he logged in playing on WoW right now?
No.
I think he is.
No.
I bet he is. I'm checking right
Do
now.
important things. Check all you want. All right. Anyway, speaking of which, while you're checking, I'm sure I can pull you away from this, Winstead, as we kind of get into our next subject here of the one thing you would change. So, Bolt, it's kind of your first time on the show, but like part of something that we always try to do is we try to talk about, whatever our topic is. If you had everything that you needed, you had all the money, power, whatever you got, all the ears and eyes on Blizzard are looking at you and they're like, hey, what's the one thing that we need to change? Just tell us one thing and we'll change it. What would it be? About our topic,
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it PvP centric, I think here.
Yeah.
I'm very critical of Blizzard at times. I think a lot of them do a really great job,
Mhm.
but I think that one area that Blizzard could seriously stand to improve on is dev communication with the PvP player base. I think that it's something that irritated me the other day, wherein they stated that warlocks were not going to get buffed for the entirety of this entire time up to 8.1. They said, we're not going to buff locks yet. They require more than numerical changes. And we didn't hear anything after that. That was in September.
Yep.
And we get all the way down here, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, they're going to change something so important for locks. Oh my goodness, maybe they'll bring back Howl. Maybe they'll give us port baseline." Um, and what ended up happening instead was they gave them numerical changes. They buffed their armor by 275%, gave them 10% health. And
Yep.
it's like doing doing stuff like that is I can try to empathize with it and try to understand it, but it's when stuff like that happens and then you compound it with like changes that aren't documented, with a lack of communication or a lack of feedback being heard and understood, or even like recognizing the feedback more than there's more to feedback than saying, "Hey guys, we hear you and we'll address this at XYZ time." There's more to feedback than that, and meaningful conversation where you engage with your player base is supremely important. That's why people loved the dev water cooler stuff that Ghostcrawler did. And that's why, like, even if people had issues with the way that Ghostcrawler balanced the game, be it mage bias that people thought that he had or what have you, the fact that he did do dev water coolers and the fact that he, was very open with the player base is something that, you'll constantly hear and you'll constantly want a longing for, because we have these great, voices in the community, like for example, 8.1 and the season is still going on. It's a massive change to the meta, and players are sitting here saying, whoa, like this could really affect things, like why are we not just ending it prior to? And there's no explanation. Like it's just they say, hey, this is what we're doing, and then that's it. There's no communication. And giving a reason, even if we don't agree with it, even if your PvP player base doesn't agree with it, at least they have a reason. At least they have a way to try to understand it. Whereas right now, it's left up to the imagination. Overall, I think Blizzard does a great job. The esports focus has been phenomenal. It's actually like magical to watch these events unfold. It's magical to, be on a podcast wherein we hear, Halinka saying, you're watching technically PvP. It's really great to hear that kind of stuff. It's amazing to see D Machine and others put in this time to push WoW esports so much. It's great to see the effects that they have on young people like Sam, like Peekaboo. Sidu is able to have a wife, children, dogs, a house, and live, because of World of Warcraft. And so, I think that everyone who's ever enjoyed World of Warcraft at one time or another has, a massive amount of respect for these devs. And, it's just the reciprocation of that is what we want to feel. And we feel that the most through feedback and through communication that we get. So that's what I would say.
Okay. I like it. And yeah, I can definitely empathize in that as well. It's like dad says, this is what's happening. And you want to ask why, and you get nothing back.
Exactly.
You're like, well, why, dad?
Because I said so.
Yeah, that's
Alinka is the dad. Please,
exactly.
Please,
He is the dad of WoW or of WoW PvP. But Winstead, since you chimed in first on that joke, how about you? What's the one thing you would change?
The with the comp that we've been talking about and how warlocks have been in this expansion, I really think that they need a good cooldown on the defensive side that really makes them scary to target. And so what I'd like to see is something along the lines of a temporal shield, okay? But instead of healing the target, it explodes and deals damage back. Kind of like a Counter-Strike. Or something along the lines of where, for every percentage of health lost, it increases the damage of their next ability by X percentage.
Yeah.
That and it also reduces damage. It dampens the blow. It gives them a little bit of a shield or buffer so that they can take more of a hit and then dish it back. Because that seems very warlock to me. You know, the mage is all about, oh, I'm just going to create a temporal rift in time, and then my health is going to go back up. But a warlock would be like, no, you're gonna attack me. I'm gonna make you pay for that. You know, and I really think that's what they kind of need, especially against these turbo comps where it's like they're just going to get trained. If you could make those turbo comps go, well, wait a second, guys, we want to make sure that we have to pay attention to this. We have to look for this, because if we see that, we need to stop or we're in trouble. You know, and so that's kind of what I would like to see for this comp. Because, I mean, rogues are fantastic. Shamans are doing really great. The linchpin of this comp is riding on that warlock. And they don't really have a whole lot of response to these, you know, turbo comps and these really heavy-hitting comps that just, oh, we're just going to go in and global a person.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to see them get something like that so they could have a little bit of counterplay.
Okay.
Definitely.
Andelin.
So I think you know, my idea is kind of following in the same on Winstead's, but personally I kind of like the glass cannony aspect of Warlock. While some could probably say like it shouldn't be that way, or you know, and they'd probably be completely right, or you know, be able to make points, definitely, you know, arguing on one side or the other. I think it'd be really cool if we just like were maybe able to kind of hold maybe the fragility of the Warlock, but still maybe like up the mobility of the Warlock to overall bring the survivability up a little bit. So for instance, I was thinking of a cool defensive where essentially you could soul link or something like that with your pet, to where you would have to kill his pet before the Warlock takes any damage, or something like that. So what that allows you to do is it allows you to play smart, to where, let's say you're playing on Mugambala, right? And you put your pet up on the 3rd top level and your imp's just casting. Now that turbo has to go up to the 2nd level and kill that pet before they can damage the Warlock. Or something like that, you know? So what it does is it allows you to play in maybe use these gates and use your teleports, and like the more crafty you can get with that, the better your survivability is. So that way your survivability is skill based, not just like, hey, you have the best survivability in the game, congratulations, you're at full insanity, just sit there with your thumb up your rear, you know? So
Okay.
as they've kind of done in the past, where like, oh, Shadow Priest is getting killed too hard, oh, we'll just give him a perma 20% wall.
Yeah.
So,
well, like a more survival.
I think everyone really likes skill based type of metrics, and I think that's the best thing you can do for the game. And the game desperately needs more of that. Desperately.
I agree with that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
it just makes more sense if it's that way. The two things that like Destro like lost coming from like WAD and MOP is they had baseline Howl, or like Talented Howl, and they had Port baseline. If you literally bought those, and they had Soul Burn Port if they were AF, which gave them a sprint. If you brought Port and Howl back for Destro Lock, it would open up a world of possibilities for play. But
even just Howl, even like
literally
that alone, that you got one more.
Or they used to sacrifice damage through. They would use embers that were used for Chaos Bolt, and they would use Ember Tap, which would heal them at the cost of doing damage.
Yeah. So you had a choice. You could either do damage or heal yourself. I remember that. So I have an idea, and it's kind of far fetched, and it's lore based because it's based off of what Medivh did in the Warcraft movie. If you ever watched that, there's a certain part when he first runs into the orcs along with the human, the rest of the hunting party or whatever, and he creates himself a shield, and then he does a spell where he drops down and touches the ground, and it does arcs out to suck the fel energy out of the fel infused orcs, and they all turn into husks and drop to the ground. Now, I understand he's a mage, unfortunately. I feel bad for him, and that's okay. But I feel that he was kind of delving into the lock stuff because really he wanted to be a warlock. And I would love to see a spell that had a similar graphic and might be like I don't know, because the resource that you have to build up as both, I know, as Affliction as well as, if I'm not mistaken, as Destro, there's that secondary resource you have to build up. And I'm thinking like use that maybe like a maximum cost with some sort of a cast time, but do that kind of a thing. Maybe not kill everything, but do some massive damage to everybody on the enemy team.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe have it be like so much damage, but then it's like across so many people. You know what I mean? So like if it's in a battleground where obviously there's way more people, it's less per person. But in an arena, it would work out to around, I don't know, 50% across the 3 people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's, I would it's nice to do these giant demon bolts, but sometimes, or any massive spells. And I feel that that's the one thing that the lock really kind of shines on is they're canon. They're not as glass as, let's say, a mage, right? But they have these really cool, neat spells, and it's spell usually based or something along those lines, fire. So yeah, that's one thing I would like to see. I would love to see something along those lines of that graphic where I could just imagine like casting that spell, drop down to a crouch and watching arcs of green fire shoot out towards people and like drive a spike through them and watch like half their health disappear or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
That's me. Other than that, as far as the comp goes, I think rogues have more than enough, and I think shaman are just fine. So yeah. All right. Wow. So that has pretty much closed out that section of the podcast, and I know we're going really long here. We still have a bunch of news to go through, so I want to punch through this, and we'll see where we end up for actual length. Here we go.
All right! Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
All right. So for WoW PvP news, we have a couple things that happened. First and foremost, as we already talked about, 8.1 dropped today, right? So a bunch of show notes change. The notes went up on the official forums or on the official page news as to what actually changed. And there was a bunch of edits that happened shortly after it went up because there's a whole bunch of, this was such a large patch that they actually missed a couple things. So I had to go back up and post a few more things up. I have a quick question though. Did you guys is there anything that stood out to you guys in the patch notes as to what changed 8.1? I don't know. Andolin, anything jump out at you?
I've kind of just been looking at some of the new things that people are testing. And I don't know, because when you look at a lot of the changes, it's really easy to kind of be like, to blow stuff out of proportion on like what a percentage means because like there's no context. So like for instance, when you see like Monk, Fury of Zwen, your combo strikes grant you the Fury of Zwen, giving your next Fist of Fury a 2% chance to grant 1200% haste, for 8 seconds. Well, that one's a little bit more, basis, but here you go. So like when you increase your reduce your agility from 105% to 140% for Brewmaster, like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, how does that actually manifest? So I don't know. I like to try to kind of watch some of the testing, and I like to watch, like, for instance, what we were talking about earlier with Sea-Doo finding weird things that maybe they didn't intend it to be that way, but for the most part, it's still just playing around with these actual abilities and playing around with these changes and stuff like that. So I think really the meat of what is to see in the patch notes is just starting now. So
yeah, the thing for me is the war mode. And they're trying, I mean, because the last time I was on the show, we talked about, war mode and how it's very horde side and not very alliance side. And so they're trying to boost interest on the alliance side to go into war mode. And I don't know. I just don't think it's going to work out very well. I mean, maybe the fact that it's easier now to get in and out of war mode, the fact that you just have to be in a resting area.
Oh, only to get out of it, though. So if you want to be a pansy and, oh no, they're coming after me, Hearth or whatever, and get to a rested area, you can turn it off. But you still have to go back to Stormwind or Orgrimmar to turn it back on.
Oh, man. I would much rather have it the other way around.
But you're talking, you kind of alluded, are you talking about the bonus that they're changing for war mode?
Yeah, the bonus I don't think is going to work. I don't think it's going to be a big enough impact to really bring more alliance players into the mix. Just don't think it's going to work. And then it being able to be disabled in rested areas. I mean, like you said, it's just like, oh crap, we're being overrun. I'll just run to an inn and get out. It's like, well, we don't want you to get out. We want you to be involved.
And yeah, so I'm really kind of curious how this is going to play out. So there's been some there's some conversation about this, and I think some confusion as well. So originally this was seen on the PTR. It was announced as being a 30%, 10 to 30. And originally it was announced on some social and news networks that Alliance were going to get a 30% bonus and Horde were only going to get 10. That's not the case. Everybody starts at 10. But when there is a imbalance of faction within a certain area, actually, here, I'm just going to quote it. It says, the reward bonuses for war mode can now scale above 10% when a faction was outnumbered over the course of the preceding week, up to a maximum of 30% additional quest rewards and experience. So it's not even zonal. It's nothing. It's based on the previous week. So if last week, and it scales, it's not immediately 30%. It could be 15. It could be 20. It could be, I don't know what the scaling is.
Yeah.
I would really hate for it to be like by 0.1% or something like that, or like 17 instead of 18 or whatever. But yeah, so, and it's based off of the imbalance of the previous week. So on this alone, if everybody on the Alliance side turned on war mode right now, there's a possibility that next week the Horde will end up with a above 10%.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening. It's not a big enough incentive. It's not a big enough incentive. What do you think, Bolt?
I don't know. We'll see. Bolt?
I think that I can see where they're coming from with trying to increase the bonus that you get from participating in war mode, but I would prefer if it was more like a constant thing, more like Winter Grasp and Tenacity. I think that a lot of the issue with war mode is the ease of finding groups. So back in the day, you used to have these groups that would form up on your server and you would have massive world PvP, right? But it wasn't something where you would just instantly phase over to a realm with 3 different raids together that you popped up in, 3 minutes. It was much more difficult to group up. And once you did group up, it was difficult to get to the location to assist in an all-out fight. Now it's really, really simple. And because it got so simple, I feel like it lost a lot of its prestige. It lost a lot of its kind of epicness, and more serves as just a giant annoyance for people that are just trying to quest.
Yeah.
And then,
well, and question for you: are you a Horde? I may have missed this, but are you Horde or Alliance?
I play both. My Shaman's on Horde, but my mains that I PvE on are on Alliance.
Okay.
But
so
it's just
I'll say thing. So on the main server where I have a couple where I mained off of, I have a whole bunch of tunes over there. and I've done both war mode off and war mode on. And war mode on was great at the very beginning because there wasn't a lot of opposing faction. At worst, I might end up with like a rolling team of 5 come rolling across, kill me, whatever, and then I res again and they're gone. Recently, especially now when I'm leveling, I have run into a repeated exercise of where I'm leveling and then a team comes across and then they camp me. But more specifically, at level 120, the thing I see the most on the Alliance side is I'm doing a world quest. There's like, an elite. I need team. I need to create a team or something like that. And I specifically one night I sat in queue almost an hour in LFG with the using the world quest add-ons and everything, so everybody knew what quest I was doing. I said I had war mode on, and people are still queuing in with war mode turned off, so we're phased and everything. And at best, we had 3 people with war mode on, and I cycled through almost 25 people that queued in. Oh, you have war mode, and they didn't understand. I said, "Hey, you're phased. You have to turn war mode on," and they just left group.
Yeah, on the Alliance side,
that's what I
World
want to
PvP
avoid.
is just not interesting, and it's really sad because I really enjoy World PvP. But
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, so that's the
All right.
only thing that
Okay.
I really latched onto with the news. It's just I don't think it's enough.
Okay. The thing I latched onto the most was the Azerite vendor. So now we can scrap. I think it requires elite Azerite gear, and then you get the Titan Residium through the scrapper, and then you can use that to purchase Azerite armor with specific kinds of Azerite armor.
Specific
I'm
slots.
assuming. Yeah, so if you want, let's say, a new shoulder, you can get that. I didn't delve too much into this. I'm betting that the actual traits are probably still going to be RNG.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but it's gonna help out a lot when you get your weekly chest and you're like, oh crap, I got another pair of boots again, and it's like, well, I could really use that, the headpiece because I'm like 20 item levels back, and it's got really good stats, and you're able to at least roll on a new headpiece and hopefully get what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank goodness I got another pair of boots that are 20 item levels below what I already have.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. Let's see here. What else? There's a couple of racials that changed. So the Troll Berserking that got reduced from 15 to 10, but it lasts for 12 seconds instead of 10 seconds. So kind of a trade-off. And the Arcane Torrent, the Belf Arcane Torrent, is now a 2-minute cooldown instead of a minute and a half. Let's hear what else. Oh yeah, you talked about this before there, Winstead, how they decrease the amount of time it takes to level from 1 to 110. It now only takes 20. It's 25% faster.
Yeah. I really want to cuss right now, but
well, it's actually okay because between that, I mean, with all the ally races, so now you can level those faster.
Well, and to put it all in perspective, I now have every class is level 110 or higher except for Warlock, Hunter, Warrior. So I now have, with the new leveling changes, I can go ahead and push those guys up to 110 and get everybody to 120 before the end of next year.
Nice. Does this mean that you're going to start leveling a Warlock after this conversation we had today?
I'm not too interested in Warlock. I'll admit that. I got him. He's level 24 right now, I think, my Warlock is. And then my Warrior's 20 and my Hunter's 20. I've just been slowly burning off rested XP when I get the chance, and I'm not going to go crazy like I did with my healers, because it was like I stopped playing the game and just focused on my healers. I think my most progressed tune is my Shaman, and he's got like a 310 item level.
Wow.
He's terrible.
Sorry, that was a sarcastic one.
Yeah, no. It's understandable. But hey, right. I've got 5 level 120 tunes.
Yes. It's more than I have. So the other thing I noticed, which is especially PvP orientated, rated BGs and rated arenas will now grant an extra 50% conquest for all reward weeks up to week 9. So if, let's say, you have an alt and you just haven't got around to really trying to do the conquest stuff, you're now going to be able to do, it's catch-up mechanics, right? It means you're going to get through all the stuff. So awesome. I think that's about it for, well, the 3.1 stuff.
Oh, the last thing. I just very saw it on the notes. The not really too oriented to PvP or PvE, but just overall gameplay wise, the integrated new multi-threading performance optimization.
Oh, yes.
The game,
yes.
Gosh,
and that's only for
really
Direct 12 and Metal. Yeah. But again, that's only for clients using Direct 12 or Metal.
Yeah, but I'm using Direct 12. We're good.
Yeah.
Now, so basically, if you have a higher end system, the game is going to start recognizing that and starting to use your additional resources that are available to your system. So, basic World of Warcraft has been a very heavy CPU game, and graphics cards really haven't been very instrumental in the game's running. The game just doesn't care.
They are, but yeah.
But now,
not as much as.
But now it's going to really look to your graphics card to assist in the performance of your game. That's going to be wonderful.
Yep. One other item just came out today. There was also some hot fixes implemented. Specifically, this is a whole bunch of PvP tuning that happened. So I highly recommend go take a look at that, because there's a whack load that are at, so like Rogue got a 30% nerf on Azerite trait. Shaman got 80% nerf on the Pack Spirit, which we talked about during this podcast. And then there's like a 50% reduction for when you're against when you're in PvP for a whole bunch of other traits across all the classes and specs. So make sure you go check that out as well as all the changes that happened again through the 8.1. Okay, last couple power through this stuff. So PvP season number 2, it did not drop today. No, it is going to be on the 22nd of January. So PvP season 1 is going to end the same day. Season 2, they'll reset the ladder, off you go, and we'll probably see the rewards a couple weeks after that, after they've combed through the ladder. And actually, no, I guess scrap that, because rewards are tied to rating already, right? So there's no need for them to scrub.
Yep,
right? So we should be. Pardon me?
It'll start the Tuesday that they close the first season.
Yeah, but I mean, before they used to freeze the, take a snapshot of the bracket.
Well, no, they'll still do that.
Through it.
They'll still have to do that for rank 1, I think. But
rank 1. Yeah.
No, they don't. People are already rank 1. They get it just by virtue of the ladder.
But can't you fall out of the rank 1?
So there's no scrubbing.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So yeah, they still need to isolate, and ban the people that were cheating and all that fun stuff. So I imagine there'll be a little bit of.
Oh, maybe they might.
I think there'll be a little bit of weight, but not as much as in the past.
I'm confused.
Maybe.
Rank 1, the title attributed to the rank 1. So with this one, what's this season called? Dread? Is that what this one's called? I can't remember. But the rank 1 titles have not gone out yet. Those require the end of the season to go out. Like, you might be able to get rank 1 on ladder, but the rank 1 titles, they still have to scrub for at the end of the season.
But you do get your if you get your 1400 rating, then you get your duelist, and then if you get your 18, your 2K, you get those rewards immediately once you hit those ratings.
Yeah. And you get your glad mount and all that other stuff.
But your rank 1 rewards are end of season, and that's the top 1% of PvP players.
Okay, so so they'll still need to scrub that, and we'll probably see it 2 weeks after that. So okay, thanks guys. I thought that what I was saying sounded kind of off, but with this new change, I've been confused. So I will point out though, this will mean that season 1 will have been 20 weeks long. If my math is right.
Jeez.
Too long. Too long.
Mhm. All right. GCD changes. So they said they're going to
Yay!
take a couple things off the GCD, mostly just movement stuff. So it was the Havoc Vengeful Retreat. All druids get wild charge off the GCD. Arms and Fury Warriors charge. Protection Warrior, the Ignore Pain and Intercept and Dragon Charge in PvP is off GCD. And Survival Hunters Harpoon. So that's, they said for sure, and that was as of when was that? The 5th of December, I guess, or the 4th of December. Anyways, I honestly, again, the list was so long, I didn't scrub the 8.1 changes, so I hope that happened, but I don't know. Either way, if it didn't, it's coming really soon. Last but not least, the Dev Q&A got announced this Friday. So I'll have a link in the show notes. There's the Twitter again using the hashtag, or there's a forum on the official forums. Go ahead, post your ideas, get it up there, get it done. Let Ian answer those hard questions that we want to ask. All right. All right. That is that. We'll go and roll into our trivia question. So the previous episode's question was, what is the maximum number of players you can queue with into a random BG? Answer 5. So I want to give a congrats to Verlaine for being the first to enter and get 2 ballots into the game time giveaway. There was a couple other people that answered and they all got 1, but because he was the first, he gets 2 plus the shout out. This episode's trivia question is, which pro arena player said that they make their teammates clip their nails? Send your answer to technicallypvp@gmail.com, and the first correct answer will earn a shout out on our next show and 2 ballots for the free time giveaway. So just on that, this is going to be the last question we're asking for that actually gives ballots to that giveaway. We're not doing a Christmas episode, which would be 2 weeks from now. We are going to put out a little something fun for y'all to listen to. But as far as actual full-fledged episodes and questions, this is it. And our next episode in the new year, we will announce our winner.
Yeah.
So, speaking of shout-outs, does anybody have any shout-outs they want to give?
Yeah, I do. I have the most shout outs to give. All right.
Go for it, man.
So big shout out to Drexia. He's literally the best Destro Warlock in this game. Full stop. And then also a shout out to, of course, Resurgent Esports Broadcasting. I got to do some stuff with them earlier in this year. Great bunch of guys. Definitely check out the streams at twitch.tv/ResurgentESB. And then always a shout out to the arena forums. That's it. Oh, and Vindicate them, because that's the guild that I PvE in, and we need a melee DPS. US 40.
Looking for melee DPS, Roger.
US 40. We raid 9 hours a week. Go ahead. It's awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, guys. I think that's about it for show notes or for shout outs. Just for yourself there, Bolt, where can people find you if they're looking for you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, let me open up my Twitter so I can actually find what my @ is. So you guys can find me typically on Twitter, which will be @BoltonQT_Vindi, VINDI. And then I'm also on Discord, Bolt #6807. I'm in a couple of the different Discords. If you have any questions about pretty much anything, I'll be more than happy to answer them. I'll always look like I'm appearing offline, but I am indeed online, or at least somewhere near my phone or computer most of the day. But yeah.
Cool. And just for that, I will also include that at the bottom of the show notes when we post this up. As for our stuff, Andelin, Winstead, could one of you guys list off where our listeners can reach us?
Sure. You can tweet the podcast at technically_PVP on Twitter, or email us at technicallypvp@gmail.com.
You can also visit our blog for individual contact information at technicallypvp.wordpress.com. A link will be available for you in the show notes.
Indeed. Or you can also join our Discord and our Battle.net community. Again, those links will be in the show notes at the bottom. Thank you all for listening, and we will chat with you next time. Good night, all.
Cheers. Happy New Year.
See you guys.
Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, or directly from the RSS feed at libsyn.com. Please give us some reviews on Apple Podcasts, good or bad. It helps us know what we're doing well or poorly and helps others find the podcast. This has been a presentation of Technically PvP Podcast 2018.